Hi, we're Kyle and Julie Parton. Welcome to the first session of Couple Talk, cracking the code to an amazing relationship.
We're excited to be your Couple Talk video hosts because this program transformed our marriage, and we wholeheartedly believe that it will greatly improve your relationship too.
We were 6 months into marriage when we attended our first Couple Talk class, and man, did we need it.
We were madly in love with each other, we had a ton of common interests, and we had a lot of fun together.
But we also struggled with many of the same issues all young couples struggle with, from which way the toilet paper roll should face, to what it means to live on a budget, from who washes the dishes, to dealing with my in-laws.
And anytime we tried to talk about any of these issues, one of us would get so angry that they would just shut down, and the other ended up in tears. We didn't know how to get unstuck when it came time to discussing about matters of life or matters of the heart.
Like I said, man, we needed Couple Talk. The communication skills and conflict resolution tools we learned helped us get unstuck whenever we had to talk about a hot topic or touchy issues or even have heated discussions.
We are thrilled that you are going through this program. But be aware, Couple Talk is not your typical video-based program.
Couple Talk is different than most anything else that we've ever seen.
First, Couple Talk is an experiential program. What we mean is that during each session, you and your partner will have ample opportunities to practice what you are learning on the spot.
Video-based programs are often called plug and play, which is code for stare at the screen and zone out of your mind. Not with Couple Talk, but that is why it's more of an experience than an actual program.
Second, Couple Talk teaches relationship skills and communication tools that really work.
Couple Talk is a hands-on program that gives couples the tools and the skills to communicate and resolve conflict.
Finally, be prepared. Couple Talk will have an immediate impact on your relationship.
Don and Alex Flecky, who developed Couple Talk, are gifted teachers. They've been married for over 30 years and have taught thousands of couples about marriage and relationship issues.
We love how authentic they are. They share from their own personal experience and include their struggles.
The real impact of Couple Talk is what you do with their teaching and exercises that they lead you through. We sat in the class, we took the notes, we wrote in our workbooks, we did the exercises during the sessions, and we continue to practice what we learned in the class at our home. And the results were astounding. All right, enough with us. Let's get started with Couple Talk. This is the first session of part 1, cracking the code to a deeper connection.
Open your workbooks, get out your pens, take some notes, and get ready to learn a ton. Here are Don and Alex Flecky with today's session called Trading Places.
Welcome to Couple Talk. We're excited for you to learn Couple Talk and help you crack the code to a deeper connection. I'm Don.
And I'm Alex, and sometimes people get us mixed up thinking I'm Don, D-A-W-N, and he's Alex, but I'm Alexandra. I go by Alex.
We've been married over 30 years. We have 3 adult kids, and we've been teaching couples for over almost 25 years. And I was thinking about how long we've been doing this and how many couples we've taught, and realized that we've taught hundreds of classes, many different relationship topics, and actually thousands of couples.
Some say that the most significant issues that contribute to divorce are money, sex, and kids. But we contend that it's not those issues that will lead to divorce or could determine whether you divorce. It's the way you communicate about those issues. It's the ability to communicate about money, the ability to communicate about sex and about kids that determines whether a couple is going to end up falling apart or merely surviving or thriving. And we believe, we know it's possible to thrive no matter what the issue, and that's why we developed Couple Talk.
So the focus in Couple Talk is communication between the two of you. With Couple Talk, you'll be cracking the code on those issues, but not only cracking the code on budgeting or sex or whatever the issues are right now, but cracking the code to an amazing relationship. Couple Talk will equip you for the long haul. We've been married over 3 decades, and we're much better equipped now than we were when we first got married. Here's a bit of our story.
Right. I'm from the East Coast. I was born in Philadelphia, so that's where I'm told my accent still is, you can tell. I'm from Philadelphia. And then when I was about 10, my whole family moved to Fort Lauderdale, to Florida. When I was in high school, my parents divorced, but that's not when the troubles started happening. It was all throughout my whole life. So basically, there are 2 ways to handle conflict. When people have a conflict, some people want to approach it and attack it, and they end up attacking their partners, attackers. Others tend to kind of want to maybe sweep it under the rug, let's not deal with it out in the open, and they tend to be avoiders. And in my family, we come from a long line of attackers. It is one of those things where you never let an issue go. You use whatever verbal weapons you have at hand. And I saw my parents having conflict using all sorts of those kinds of weapons. There was mocking and accusations and belittling and loud voices. Sort of the motto was, attack first, ask questions later. More like just attack and then keep attacking. Why bother to ask questions? So it was not actually a very safe place to grow up, and it was definitely not a place to learn about having a healthy marriage.
And I'm a West Coast kid, born and lived all my life in Southern California. I came from an intact family, and we always had a lot of family around, a lot of fun times, good relationships with our family. But we were of the other ilk. We were avoiders. In my family, we didn't ever openly fight. In fact, I didn't see my parents openly fight at all. One time, I saw my dad raise his voice, and it just scared me to death. It was the only time I had ever seen that happen. I didn't see them work out conflicts. I would see my mom pursue him and say, listen, we got to talk about this or that, and he'd just walk out of the room. So it seemed to me that the motto in my family was, never lose your cool. And if you think you're about to lose your cool, leave, walk out. This is a picture of Mount St. Helens on May 17th, 1980. A beautiful mountain in the state of Washington. This is it on May 18th, 1980. On May 18th, 2 cataclysmic events happened. One was the volcano that was Mount St. Helens erupted.
Right, it was a major event. There were over 60 deaths. There was tremendous destruction. Ash came all throughout the West Coast.
The other cataclysmic event is that we got married. And it turns out that Mount St. Helens is a perfect metaphor for our relationship. Beautiful, idyllic one day, and blown apart and devastated the next day. Even the spewing ash is a metaphor for the angry, hurt, attacking things we said to each other. And it was a drastic change, not something we expected. We didn't consciously choose it, but we kind of automatically just started using the tools we had learned in our families growing up.
When we were married, I decided to make homemade lasagna, and so I left work early, did all my shopping, read all the recipe directions, put all that effort in, and had that ready for him when he came home from work. And he actually was on time, so that was a really good thing. We were doing well. Until I said, okay, let's sit down for dinner, and you said?
I'm really not hungry. We ordered pizza at the office about 4.
Right. So, when you're a wife, you use other tools. And so I did what I had learned growing up. I get it. I see what you're trying to do to me. I go to all this effort, and it's you and your buddies, you and your friends that are so important that you have to go and eat with them. You can't even remember that you have a wife who's most likely making dinner here at home. Mm-hmm.
She attacked, and I tried to get away. I tried to defend myself, tried to not talk about it and avoid the situation just like I'd seen in my family. And I would do that until finally I would explode. Mm-hmm. We didn't intend to do this. It was unconscious. And I came to the point where, as we went back and forth like this, and it seemed to be worsening over a period of several months, I came to a point where I believed that I had made the biggest mistake of my life. I was discouraged, I was depressed, and I couldn't understand how I could have been so blind.
Right, right. And I was miserable too, but wasn't that what marriage was about? So I was just doing what's normal.
And I realized that the way that we were communicating about our differences was not working. I had to try something different. So I made a choice. I said, Alex, I'm not going to get into these kinds of arguments with you anymore. I changed the way I reacted to her attacks.
Right, he changed our pattern, and I kind of couldn't attack the old way anymore. He wasn't my partner anymore in this kind of argument pattern we had created. And so it made me have to do different things too. And there was soon a little bit less attacking, fewer insults, and I ended up realizing our marriage wasn't doomed, and that a little bit of hope really can go a long way.
Looking back, I realized that it was our communication, our conflict pattern that was causing so many of the problems. And it turns out that marrying Alex wasn't the biggest mistake of my life. I wasn't blind. She really is who I thought she was. And it frightens me to think of what would have happened if I would have left, if I would have divorced. I would have missed out on being partnered with really the most wonderful person in my life. And the experiences and the closeness and the life we've had together, to think about missing that is terrible. So Couple Talk can bring those kinds of changes into your lives.
Right. Now we had the hope. We started to get hope back, but we had a lot of work to do still. I had to change the natural tendency that I had to attack first and only, and learn how to be respectful, even if I had hurt feelings or angry feelings, and learn how to stop interrupting and begin listening.
And I had to change my natural pattern to avoid. When I'm attacked, my instinct is to run. And instead, I've had to force myself to face it and speak honestly to Alex about what my frustrations are. That's what Couple Talk's about, changing unhealthy communication habits and building new ones. Using the kind of communication that brings you close and help you resolve differences and problems. Now we have a way to get back on track.
And it turns out that marriage can be fun. It isn't misery like I had expected. So that's what's wonderful. It's great, it's possible, even after over 30 years.
Let's turn to the workbook. I'm going to ask you now to go to the table of contents. Couple Talk has two parts. Cracking the code to a deeper connection is where we're going to start today. Later, we will crack the code to handling conflict.
What we ask is that you follow along, fill in the blanks, mark in your workbook, and do these things because it really helps you retain and remember what you're learning and apply it later. So what I'd like you to do is turn to session 1, where we'd like to tell you about Couple Talk. Couple Talk teaches practical communication skills, ways of speaking and listening.
Watch this clip of a typical couple conflict. Think about how they speak and listen to each other. Pay attention in this clip to what's not working for them. What are they doing wrong?
Jeannie, what is this credit card bill?
What?
How are we ever going to get out of debt if you keep spending money on junk?
It's not junk. I had to buy a couple outfits for the conference. Besides, you spent way more on that golf trip.
There you go again with a golf trip. You know, I work really, really hard.
You know what? You act like you're the only one who works around here. I work full-time too, and then I have to come home and do all this around the house. What do you ever do to help out the family?
Let's see. I worked all day the other day fixing the faucet.
Yeah, good job. And it's still leaking. You're a great handyman.
Well, you know, at least I try very, very hard to save money for this family while you continue to spend money uncontrollably.
You're ridiculous. You act like you do everything around here and you don't even know the half of it. Who's the one who has to always go pick up the kids?
Oh, really? Always pick up the kids? Let me remind you, last week I got a phone call from the school because you forgot to pick up our children.
I can't believe you're bringing that up. You know how bad that made me feel, and you keep throwing that in my face like you never make mistakes.
Oh, I make mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, and the biggest mistake was 15 years ago.
Okay, talk to your partner for 30 seconds about what you noticed in that clip. What were they doing wrong?
Turn and talk to your partner.
Okay, let me ask you as a group, I'd like you to give some feedback. What did you notice that they did wrong in that clip?
One of the first things I saw was they used always and never a lot.
Uh-huh.
Always
Sure
and
did.
never.
Yeah, that's right.
They always do.
They are, yeah.
Yeah. All right, what else?
I feel like they kept trying to one-up each other. Like whenever they accuse someone, it's like the next level of, well, it wasn't as bad as when you did this, and it was just these levels of trying to compete.
Yeah, kind of a battle, wasn't it? Yeah, who's going to win? Right. Did you see much listening going on in that skit? Not so much, huh? A lot of talking, not much listening. Don't we all do that? I mean, if we're honest with each other and we admit that, well, the good news is that couple magically went through a CoupleTalk class in that time we've been talking. Yeah. So they're going to have a talk about that same topic. Pay attention in this clip to what's different. And we want you to take notice of what they do right this time.
Jeannie, what is this credit card bill?
What?
How are we ever going to get out of debt if you keep spending money on junk?
It's not junk. I had to buy a couple outfits for the conference. Besides, you spent way more on that golf trip.
I'll tell you what, this is not going to go anywhere. If we continue to do this, we're going to fight. It's just going to be a horrible scene. So maybe we should just sit down, talk about this. Let's just use the skills that we learned in Couple Talk. Okay?
Okay.
Honey, I want to redo what I said a few moments ago. I do appreciate you. I appreciate the fact that you work really hard at your job, and then you come home and you work very hard at home, the way you take care of the kids, and I acknowledge that I see you trying to save money, you cut the coupons and so forth. But when I got that credit card statement, I just, I saw those charges and I just got really upset and kind of lost my cool.
So you acknowledge that I work really hard and that I am being careful about my spending, but when you got your credit card statement, made you angry and you had a lot of pressure about making the monthly payments.
Yeah, I feel a lot of pressure. I feel sometimes that I'm just alone in this situation in regards to our finances. There are times that I'm feeling very just hopeless about things, and boy, sometimes it really gets discouraging,
So you feel down because no matter how hard we try, we just can't seem to get out of our financial issue.
Yeah.
Well, as I see it, you work really hard and so do I. And I just want you to know that I worked at trying to be careful about spending, and I only spent what I needed for the conference. And I was really nervous about handing over that credit card.
Well, you work really hard, and you were careful, with spending the money, and you were nervous when you handed the credit card over, probably because you were worried that I might get upset at you when I got the credit card statement. I'm glad to know that you recognize what we're going through, because I felt alone for quite a long time, and so thank you very much. I'd like to just sit and talk and figure out a way that we can work together and get this mess cleared up.
So you're relieved that I'm being cautious about my spending and that we're both taking responsibility for our finances. And you'd like to take a fresh look at what we're doing and try and work on our getting out of this debt?
Exactly, yes.
Great. This feels really good. I think we're going to be able to work this out.
Fantastic.
Take 30 seconds and talk to your partner about what they did right. Go.
Go ahead and talk to your partner.
Okay, we'd like to hear from some of you. What did you notice that they did right that time? Sarah?
Well, I noticed that they caught themselves before it escalated, so they were able to diffuse the situation.
Yeah.
They recognized what was going to happen.
Yep. Uh-huh. Good. Jerome?
And as we were discussing, I mean, even in the first time, they had such a distance between them, and this time when they caught themselves, they came together and they sat down and they addressed it, and it was more intimate, and they took the time to be with each other.
They were in separate rooms that first clip. They didn't even go, they were yelling across the, 2 rooms across versus getting together, sitting down, being right next to each other, yeah.
Jennifer?
And in addition to that, every time someone would share how they felt, the other person would repeat it back to them to make sure that it was clear and that they were being understood.
Yeah, good. You caught that. Nice. Anybody notice that there were some appreciations that went on in that? Yeah. Kind of changed the whole tone of that, didn't it? Yeah. He was ready to explode, and like Sarah mentioned, he caught himself and stopped and said, listen, we can do this a different way. And he began by talking about how he appreciated the work that she does and that she does try to watch her spending. And that really sent that conversation in a whole different direction. Good. So as a result of having that kind of conversation, they'll experience more connection, they'll have more intimacy, more trust, and more teamwork together. Understanding each other, resolving conflict, planning solutions that leave both people satisfied. A lot of good stuff that's coming out of this.
One of the things we want to make a point about here, though, is to get to that point of learning these kinds of skills and to get skillful at it, to get good at it, it takes practice. So you've got to practice. And there's a known path by which we learn skills.
In the beginning, you don't know the skill, and when you start, you're pretty lousy at it. Remember the first time you went driving? Yeah, you weren't too good, were you? Probably hit a few curbs, and hopefully that's all you hit. Then you got more practice, you learned the rules of the road, learned what the signals meant and the signs, and as you did it more and more, it kind of became for you second nature. Now, when you drove to come to this class, I'll bet none of you took any time to think about, okay, that's a red light, that means I'm going to need to stop now. Or I want to go that direction, so I have to remember to use my turn signal. It's all happening for you automatically. It's unconscious.
In fact, you probably drove here with the music on and with a cup of coffee in your hands and who knows what else you were doing. Hopefully nothing with your phones.
Yeah.
But it's because it's so ingrained in you now to know all that you need to know about driving that is just unconscious.
Right. It's become a habit. It's the same way with these skills. With practice, you'll get better and better at it. It'll become more and more natural. Your communication will become healthier. CoupleTalk is backed by research. The original program that inspired CoupleTalk is one of the first marriage programs ever written. And it was written over 40 years ago by Dr. Bernard Gurney, who's known as the grandfather of marriage education.
Right, and the research has come back again and again showing the positive results. Closer relationships, better problem solving, feeling more connected.
And from that are the CoupleTalk core values. On the left side, write openness and honesty. We want you to be able to have openness and honesty as you relate to your partner. But have you ever known someone who was brutally honest? Yeah. How'd that feel? Unsafe? Yeah. Offensive? Right. You probably felt attacked. On the right side, write caring and compassion. We need honesty, but we want it to be blended with care and compassion as we're telling the truth. Too much honesty can be an attack. Too much compassion might be avoiding talking about things that need to be talked about. Putting them together is a sweet blend. And on the bottom, write the word commitment. That's the third core value, commitment. What I want as an individual and what Alex wants for herself is not as important as what our marriage needs. So there's a separate commitment that we make to us, to our relationship. That's the third core value.
So now you know what Couple Talk is about, and this session is about trading places. And I need a volunteer couple to get us started. Okay, Adam and Sarah, come forward please, and I'm going to have Adam come here, you stay right here. And I'm going to ask you, Adam, to turn and walk kind of closely over here to the screen. You got to put your face right up about there. Great. Sarah, you're going to stand almost in the same spot, but you're going to turn your back and face this way. Okay? Good. Now, Adam, this is your world. Okay? What you see here is your world. So I would like you to tell me what your world is like. So just describe what you see. So say the world is, and name what you see.
The world is a wall.
The world is a wall. Okay? You got a wall in your world. Great. Sarah, this is your world. Mm-hmm. Okay, and these things in it are all in your world. Mm-hmm. And I would like you to tell me about your world. What do you see in your world? The world is, what does it happen? Open.
A lot of happy, loving couples.
Oh, okay, happy, loving couples. Just a second. Adam, do you have any happy, loving couples in your world?
No.
I didn't hear any. It sounded like you had a wall in your world. That was just about it, huh?
Just it.
That's about it. Well, now what's wrong with your wife here? You're standing in the same spot. She says she sees happy, loving couples. What is she thinking?
I don't know what she's thinking.
Yeah, let me find out a little more about her world. Okay, tell me what else is in your world? What do you see?
I see nice furniture.
Nice furniture in your world. Now wait a second. He's telling me there's just a wall in the world. You're standing on the same spot. What is he thinking?
I think he's blind.
You think he might be a little blind. He does not see the happy couples. He doesn't see the nice furniture. It's a little bit sad, his world, isn't it? Okay. Well, now what I would like you to do is just take a step forward. Okay. And Adam, go ahead and turn around and look over Sarah's shoulder. So just position yourself to look over her shoulder. Now tell me what you see in Sarah's world.
I see a lot of happy people.
A lot of happy people and
see a lot of furniture.
A nice furniture. Aha. A very nice world here, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're seeing Sarah's world. Now I'd like you both to turn and face Adam's single color wall world and confirm. Is this what Adam's world is like?
Yes, I see the wall.
You see the wall, right. So it turns out, let me have you turn this way, both of you, and face the other way and look over her shoulder. Turns out that it was just a matter of kind of taking turns and trading places to kind of look over each other's shoulder and see that the worlds you were seeing both existed, but it was just from a different perspective, wasn't it? Right. So this stance represents the core of Couple Talk. It's not just learning about speaking and listening. It's looking over your partner's shoulder to see the world as they see it. And the standing in one spot can represent like a conflict issue. And don't we often feel like, you know, how can this person see this issue so differently? What are they thinking? But what we really want is to be understood and have our perspective understood. And our partner wants that too. And that's what trading places is about. Understanding each other's perspective from the inside. Taking turns doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As some of you were watching that, you might have been thinking, oh, that'll be really exciting. I can't wait to trade places with my partner. And it might be that Carissa and Andy are thinking about that. They're engaged, and it's exciting to think about getting to know each other better. And that's a really beautiful time in marriage. There are other times, though, where you might be in a phase where to even think about looking over your partner's shoulder is a little bit difficult. Maybe there's been some distance, some hurt feelings over time, and even just getting close enough to look over your partner's shoulder doesn't seem very possible. And we acknowledge that. That's common to all couples to go through phases like that. We've been through phases like that. And so we're asking you to temporarily set aside the unresolved issues, to try to set aside those hurts or those negative feelings, and do these exercises in this first part to the best of your ability. And later, when we get to cracking the code to handling conflict, we will be discussing those kinds of issues, the problems, the past hurts.
Trading places is not just seeing from your partner's perspective and acknowledging it. It's getting into their shoes, getting into their heart, feeling what they feel. It's called empathy.
So if you think about a time in your life when you felt really understood, maybe you had a conversation with someone, maybe as a child or recently, and you felt really understood by them. How did that make you feel?
Validated.
Validated. Yeah, and research shows when somebody tries to understand you, you feel validated, important, accepted. People use these kinds of words. Those are some of the feelings. And what about the effect on your relationship with someone who tried to understand you? You probably felt closer to them and more willing to work with them.
In your workbook, empathy is defined as putting yourself in another person's shoes or heart and identifying with the other person so much that you momentarily take on his or her thoughts, feelings, concerns, and desires.
And recent research on empathy has shown many interesting things. First, empathy does begin with the parent-child bonding, so it helps you attach. And brain research shows that when someone has a feeling and they're talking about their feelings or their experience, and another person is listening and trying to understand it, and they start kind of feeling those feelings that the person has, the neurons in the brain end up mirroring what the neurons in the feeling person's brain is doing. And we kind of end up taking on temporarily that feeling. And that's what we mean by that definition of empathy, as identifying with your partner so much that you actually momentarily take on those thoughts, those feelings, those concerns, and those desires. And research shows that people who have more empathy have better relationships. And the good news is it can be taught. Empathy is a skill. You can learn it, you can get good at it, and you can use it to understand each other better.
We want to lead you in an exercise now to allow you to experience empathy yourselves. This exercise is called the childhood memory. We want each person to think of an event that happened to you as a child. Could be pleasant, could be unpleasant, but an experience that has emotion and meaning to you. Something with emotional impact. Then you'll tell your partner this story. I'd like to ask for a volunteer to come and be up front with me and tell me your childhood story. And while he or she is telling me their story, I will trade places. I'll put myself in his or her place, and I'll try to understand from the inside. Thank you, Callie, for volunteering. Callie and I are sitting facing each other, knees almost touching, knee to knee, and that helps me to give my best attention. My body's positioned to where I can really listen my best to her. So I'm going to ask you to tell me your childhood story, and then I'm going to tell it back to you. We'll trade places, and I will tell it back to you as though I'm you.
Okay.
So go ahead and tell me your childhood story.
Okay. Well, basically, growing up, I always knew my parents would get a divorce. They would always fight, especially in front of me. I never saw them reconcile. I also never saw them love on one another or tell each other that they loved each other. And my senior year in high school, my mom slept in a completely different room in the house my entire senior year of high school. So they never actually told me that they were staying together because of me, but it was obvious that's what they were doing. So when they told me they were getting a divorce, it was not really that shocking or surprising. What was weird is kind of how it played out and how they went about it.
Now I'd like to trade places with you and retell your story up to that point. So let's trade places. So as Callie, all my years growing up, my mother and dad fought. I remember them fighting all the time. I don't ever remember them saying positive things to them. My memories of my mom and dad's relationship is just friction and conflict and hostility. And I don't have memories of them saying sweet, good things to them. And even when I was a senior in high school, they stopped sleeping in the same room. They actually slept in separate bedrooms. So my memory of my parents was filled with discord and friction. And when they told me that they were getting a divorce, it didn't surprise me at all. I kind of knew somehow deep down that they were staying together because of me, keeping the family together because I was still at home. But when I was a senior in high school and close to leaving, that's when they told me that they were going to divorce. Mm-hmm. And it didn't surprise me at all. Now, did I get that right? And if not, please give me a correction. And if there's more that you'd like to say, you can go ahead and say more.
Okay. Yeah, that was correct. Actually, it made me really sad when you were saying that because, yeah, you used more words to describe it. There is more, actually. It goes a little deeper because actually how they told me they were getting a divorce, I think, really affected me. About 1 week before I graduated high school, they took me out to dinner, and after we ordered our food and we started eating, in the middle of it, they just said, you know, Callie, we love you so much, and this isn't your fault, but we're getting a divorce. And I just nodded my head and said, okay, and then we all kept eating, and that was the end of it. Mm-hmm. So, as Callie, just retelling this story today and hearing you tell it back to me kind of brings back some of those sad feelings about it in a little bit of a fresh way. Mm-hmm. And what was really unusual about the way the divorce was told to me and kind of what affected me is we were about a week out from my graduation and we were out to eat. My mom and dad said, let's go out to eat. And we had ordered our food, and as I remember it, the food had come, and we're in the middle of eating, and they said, well, Callie, it's not your fault, but we're getting a divorce. And I was so stunned, even though I knew that their relationship was bad, and it wasn't like completely out of the blue, just hearing it and knowing it was kind of a shock to me. And I was so much stunned that I kind of didn't even know how to react or what to do. And I didn't say anything. I just kind of nodded my head and we went on with our eating. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. If you have any other correction or more that you'd like to say?
No, that's good.
Okay, good. As I was telling you that, did you feel understood?
Yeah, I did.
It was a little unusual, as me saying that I was Callie. How did that feel for you, to hear me saying that I was you and actually trading places with you?
It makes me feel kind of understood, and but it also makes the situation a little bit more real.
You felt understood.
Yeah.
And it kind of brought it back to you again in a way that was even more real than when you were telling
it sounds more sad when you're saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else about this exercise that you'd like to share?
Well, I feel like I have a more intimate relationship with you now.
That's true. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You shared something very personal with me, and that does create a closeness, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, thank you for volunteering, and we appreciate it very much.
Okay.
So now I want to ask the group, what did you notice that I did with Callie? Carissa?
I think you did a good job at touching into emotions that she didn't even realize she felt. Like she said she had realized or knew that her parents were going to get divorced, and so she wasn't really surprised, but at the same time it was kind of a shock just hearing it.
Right.
So you saying that kind of touched in on that, I think.
Yeah. What I did there was what we call reading between the lines. And it's not where I guess at what she's feeling. I only say something that I'm sure that she is feeling, but it's okay for me as I connect with Callie's experience to go ahead and share a little more deeply about what that experience was as I'm empathizing with her, even if she doesn't say it. Yeah. Other comments?
I think something else that's really important, just in the whole situation, is the fact that you were sitting like in a way that you're looking straight at her and you're making eye contact. And you made eye contact the entire time when she was telling the story and when you retold the story.
Right.
Just that you were engaged with her.
Right. I did. Yeah, and that's an important part of it. That body language matters. If Alex is going to tell me a story, something important that she wants to talk to me about, and I got the game on over here and the remote in my hand, yeah, you know what? She's not going to get everything from me. She may not get very much at all.
Right.
Yeah. Any other observations from that demonstration?
Tia.
I thought it was very important that you made a breaking point so that because you know your limit of your memory and what you're going to be able to remember as far as the details. So it's good for you to say, okay, let me recap from this point, and then you can add more later.
Yeah. It's not a test. It's not a memory test. It's connecting. It's trading places so that I can be Callie. I can be the senior year Callie for that short period of time as I'm connecting with her story. Yeah. And she mentioned something that I'd like to affirm. She feels closer to me now. Yeah. She told me a personal story, and I listened attentively, and I told it back to her in a way that showed her that I was not just hearing the words, but I was feeling what it was that she was feeling. And that brings us close. That's the magic of empathy. Well, the good news is, now it's your turn.
In your workbook are a list of events that are common in childhood. And maybe one of these will resonate with you as you're thinking about your own topic. A loss of a pet. Maybe there was a move when you were a child or to a new school. Perhaps rejection by the opposite sex or by friends. A sports experience, an experience that happened at church or Sunday school, a holiday experience. So perhaps something on that list prompts a memory for you.
We'll give you a little time to choose. Take a few moments.
On your own, choose your topic.
Does everyone have a story? Good.
let's turn to the instructions in the workbook. And what you are going to do is you're going to tell your story, your childhood story of the event that happened to your partner. And we want you to briefly describe what happened. So try not to spend all of your time telling details and facts, because what we want you to focus on is the feelings. So in the workbook, what we have is a list of some common feelings that might be helpful to prompt you, like maybe it was a feeling that caused some happiness, or you were excited or sad or scared or disappointed. And a prompt that's helpful for you to use to help you remember to name some feelings is, when that happened, I felt. And then just kind of let yourself sit there for a little bit and think about what was the feeling going on there. So that'll be helpful as you're doing this exercise. And your partner will be listening to you, and then they will ask to trade places. Now, again, they may choose to ask and after a certain point of time when their memory kind of has reached its limit. So you'll one time trade places, you will switch chairs, and then that will help you become your partner. And you will then become your partner and start with the prompt that we have in the workbook, which is, as partner's name, when I was, and you could say the age or the time of phase of life, or if it was in high school or junior high, I remember, and then retell the story as if you were your partner. And if your partner adds anything or changes anything, remember that's a gift. So they will be helping you learn more deeply about their experience. And so be open to those corrections and additions. And then when one of you is finished, you'll go ahead and the other partner, it'll be their turn to tell their childhood story. And if by chance you happen to be finished by the time is up, go ahead and start telling, one of you choose to start telling another childhood story.
Okay, so we're going to ask you to turn your chairs knee to knee so you're facing each other like you saw Callie do with me. You'll have a countdown clock for this exercise. The countdown clock will signal at the halfway point. So you'll know when we're about halfway done. You want to be sure that you switch roles around then so both people get a turn to tell their story. There will also be a signal when there's 1 minute left. So you'll know when we're close to the end. And as we approach the end, the music will increase in volume to let you know that it's time to come back together as a group. Okay? Ready? Go.
All right, let's take a moment to practice what we've learned.
Turn and face each other so you're knee to knee.
Go to the page numbers shown on the screen and begin the exercise.
You're halfway done. If you haven't done so already, it's time to switch roles.
This is the final minute, so begin wrapping it up. Turn back to the video. Don and Alex are getting ready to start.
ahead and look in your workbook. There are a list of typical responses we've gotten from a number of couples, and you'll see it really ranges, because the good news is there's no right or wrong answers to this exercise. What happened to you, how you felt about it, is what's true for you.
So the left side is when you listened and retold your partner's story. I'll read the responses, and you can mark any that are true for you. It was hard work. I wished I could ask questions or comment. I felt closer to my partner. It felt awkward and silly. My mind wandered as I listened. I felt like I was having the experience. I want to hear more stories. Or you might have a different response that you'd like to write in there in those lines. And then on your own, read the right-hand side, which are possible responses for when you told your own story. We'll give you a minute to finish filling that out in your workbook.
Now take a moment to yourself and fill in the debrief section in your workbook.
Okay. Next, we'd like to hear what your experience was, so we'll share as a group a bit. What was that exercise like for you?
From my standpoint, it was a little different because it was a story I'd heard before. But what it ended up doing, it kind of, I've heard it before, so before I was like, oh, I understand that story, I get it. But switching the roles helped me to see her, like even now, like how she would react in that situation, and putting myself in her shoes of how, like what emotions were going on, and like being in that home and like just seeing the setting around me. It's kind of like in that virtual realm, like kind of putting yourself in that situation gives it another like depth and understanding to what the situation, even though I'd heard it before.
We often hear that with this exercise. People report that it was a story they'd heard before, but it hit them in a way that they had never experienced. They understood it in a way they had never understood it. Yeah.
Now, did anybody wish that they could ask questions as they were, Carissa, you?
Yeah, I like to ask questions. I got that from my mom. It was hard.
What did you do about that?
I kept my mouth shut.
Nice.
I laughed if the story was funny, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Right, so that's what, I know it can be difficult. It can be difficult because you have this important question you feel like you might want to ask right then because it's going to help you understand more. But your partner's the expert on that childhood memory, and they're leading you through it. And so by just being quiet, he may have ended up being able to go places where you wouldn't have gone because you were going to direct him somewhere else with a question. So that's why we ask you to just listen and not direct your partner. Let them tell their story. So that's great.
Yeah, it takes work. Yeah, some of us are more talkative than others, and it's difficult for us to squelch that part of us that wants to ask questions and kind of, wait, what about this, what about this? And we're not saying don't ask questions. We're saying when you're in that role of giving empathy to your partner, when you're trading places, don't ask questions during that time. When you heard your story retold, how did that feel to you? What was that like for you?
I felt kind of similar to when she was sharing her story with you, that it brought a lot more clarity to the reality to the story. So you were able to step out and actually see what was happening outside of your own perspective and where your mind was at the time. And so yeah, I felt like it really brought the weight of the actual situation to light.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's your story.
Yeah.
But you gained self-understanding by seeing it kind of from the outside as she was telling you your story. We hear that often. It's really an incredible tool to help us know ourselves better. Yeah, and that sounds like what happened to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jennifer.
This might be a little bit of a different perspective, but when I was telling my story and he was retelling it, like instead of getting frustrated that he was missing like major parts of it, like I was cheering him on. I felt like I was just like, come on, like let's do it, like you can do it. And so that's cool, because that's different than being frustrated that why aren't you getting it?
Yeah.
That you want them to get it.
It's sweet that you saw it that way. And I'll remind the group that these are skills that are developed. They're like muscles. So as you do them, your muscles are going to build and it's going to become better. And that's how it is. Keep working those muscles.
Now what we'd like to do is give you just a few moments to turn to your partner and talk to your partner about what it was like for you. So we've had a chance to share in the large group, but we'd like you to do that. So just, you don't have to turn knee to knee, but just share with each other what you wrote in your workbook and what you thought about this exercise and felt about it.
Go.
Turn and talk to your partner about how this exercise was for you.
So we're on our way to cracking the code to a deeper connection. We're off to a good start, in fact.
So turn in your workbook, and what we'd like you to do is think about some of these points that we've learned about empathy and what we did here. So a couple of points we want to make is that trading places is becoming your partner and understanding them from the inside. So it's not just about listening and parroting back facts and things like that. It's understanding them from the inside. And the second point that we do want to make is that when you trade places with your partner, it really helps you set yourself aside and prioritize your spouse, right?
Now, we're not interested in only having you do an exercise here. We're interested in what happens after you walk out and you go back to your lives. When you have the job and the kids and the bills to pay and in-laws and busy stuff, all of that.
Right. So in your workbook, we have a place where we talk about cracking the code in everyday life. What we're asking you to do is think about trading places, now that you're going to be leaving here, and trading places with your partner, and start to notice the feelings maybe that they're feeling. So as you think about what's going on inside of your partner, try to put yourself in their place and ask yourself, is my husband feeling sad right now? I'm noticing some things. Or is there something that they seem to be happy about? They seem more lighthearted right now. And when you notice that, join them. Join them by responding to them in the way that would help them or support them. So if your partner is feeling sad, what is it that they might want? Maybe just kind of stay close by. Maybe that's all they need. If they're feeling overwhelmed, do you know maybe what your partner might want? Would they want you to say, hey, let me help you out here. I know if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I have a little bit, Don knows me well enough to know what I might want. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, what?
I got to get away.
Yeah.
I got to stay
get out of the way.
Yeah.
I get out of the path, I got to get right over there and you're in my way. Right. So you get to know your partner. When they're feeling certain feelings, find out what is it that they would want from you in terms of response. So that's the way to crack the code in everyday life in terms of using this trading places.
We've got an exercise now that we love ending our sessions with. We call it partner appreciations.
And the fact is that most of us don't do this enough. We tend to point out the things our partner did wrong, right? We point out the mistakes, or we give helpful advice because we just want to make them better people. But in reality, what we all really want is to hear those positives about us, our we want more support from our partners. So what we're asking you to do is think about those things you appreciate and admire about your partner and say them out loud.
So we're going to simply ask you to tell your partner something that you appreciate about them. And in your workbook, we describe some of the things you might want to choose from, such as something you admire about them, something you appreciate that they do, a special quality they have, a time they made some extra effort for you, something from the past that you remember and really appreciate.
This is the kind of thing that really can build deeper connections. So we have lots of opportunities in here in Couple Talk to do this. This is your first opportunity.
So you'll tell your partner something you appreciate, and after that's been done, your partner cannot just say, "Thanks, that's nice, felt good." No. Your partner will summarize back to you what was just said to them, that appreciation, such as, "You appreciate that I do such and such."
Right, and that gives you kind of a double dose of appreciation. You hear it from your partner, and then, as you're summarizing it back, that helps you internalize it more. Your partner gave you an appreciation. Take it in and feel good about that. And we all need that, especially from our partners.
So we're going to do a demonstration.
Dawn is going to do an appreciation of me. We always do this, whoever can say first who gives an appreciation. So Dawn's going to be giving me one, right? There's so many to choose from.
That's right. I could go on for a week.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So one of the things I really appreciate about you is how supportive you are to me when I want to go on a golf trip with the guys or a fishing trip with the guys. You've always been really encouraging to me. You haven't been complaining. You haven't been critical. And that allows me to go and have those times of recreation with the guys and have a great time and come back and be able to share with you how I had a good time and not have an undercurrent of resentment or anything. And that gives me a lot of freedom and a lot of benefit, and I really appreciate that about you.
So you appreciate that I support you when you want to go fishing or golfing, and you end up having a good time because you know that you don't have to come back and face somebody who's maybe going to make you feel guilty or something like that. So it really helps you to have a good time when you go golfing or fishing and enjoy that time. And when you come back, it makes you feel good that I have supported you and I don't have any kind of payment I'm expecting from you in return or something like that.
That's it exactly. I appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. So then she would give an appreciation back to me, but we won't model that now because we want to get you guys doing it yourselves. So it's your turn to give each other an appreciation just the way you saw that. Go ahead and turn your chairs so that you're facing each other knee to knee, and we want you each to give that appreciation to each other. Go.
Get knee to knee with each other and start the exercise.
You're halfway done. If you haven't already done so, it's time to switch roles.
turn back to the video. It's time to start again.
Good. Now we'd like you to mark in your workbook and reflect on what that was like for you.
We'll give you 1 minute for that.
On your own, complete the quick debrief.
So we'd like to hear from the group. What was that like to hear those appreciations from your partner? Carissa?
It was refreshing. The one that he mentioned about me, I didn't even remember it. And it's because I guess it was so little in my mind that I didn't think anything of it. And so it was nice to hear what he appreciated. So now I know it makes me want to do it more.
Right, so that little thing that you thought was just a nothing little thing, it just shows you that our partners might really be feeling good about it, but maybe because we didn't mention it, we don't know. So it makes you, so you get something out of it too. She sounds like she's going to be doing that more. Good deal.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's funny because mine was like the opposite. I feel like she complimented me on something that I make a conscious effort to do, and it validated what I like to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so it was something you deliberately are trying to do that's good. And what's wonderful about it is she experienced it and showed you that she's appreciating what you're doing. That's great. Yeah.
Now it's time for you to talk to your partner for just a minute or so and tell each other what you thought of that exercise, how it struck you. Go.
Turn and talk to your partner.
Okay, I got to bring you back together. We're going to wrap up.
Well, we are really looking forward to our next session, which is listening fully,
where we will keep on cracking the code to a deeper connection.
Congrats on making it through your first CoupleTalk session.
We told you this isn't your typical video-based program, didn't we?
At this point, you may be feeling a little overwhelmed and emotionally drained. You probably felt awkward trading places, but you also experienced something positive in your relationship.
To recap, in today's session, you learned about how important empathy is to your marriage. Empathy is putting yourself in your partner's shoes and seeing things from their perspective.
It is important in marriage to give and receive empathy with your partner. To make it easier to get into your partner's shoes, sitting knee to knee helps couples stay focused and connected during a discussion. Don and Alex also taught us that empathy is to momentarily take on your partner's thoughts, feelings, concerns, and desires.
This is where you listen to what your partner is saying and then repeat back to them what you heard as if you were them.
And when it comes time for the partner who is listening to share what they heard, changing chairs can help you physically and mentally trade places.
Sharing a childhood memory is a powerful way to practice giving and receiving empathy and trading places.
Wow, that is a lot of learning for one session.
But the learning doesn't stop there. Practicing what you learn is essential to make couple talk a part of your relationship.
In the back of your workbook, there's a section called Making It Real. Before the next session, we encourage you to go through that section on either a daily basis or at least a couple times.
And there are some additional ideas for you and your partner to practice what you learned in this session. Practice is crucial to changing habits.
So that's a wrap on Trading Places. You have finished your first session of Couple Talk. Julie and I look forward to the next session called Listening Fully.
Goodbye.